Oh, no.
And every one of us at the table said, what? That's not the story. So I'm going to tell the story I've been telling for 49 years, and then we can argue with Mama next time. So when I was little, I was 2 years old, and I just started saying that my name was Goose. And Mama, I'm the youngest, she's tired, she didn't think much of it. She's like, that'll go away. And I insisted, and I would turn my back if someone called me Elizabeth, and I'd say, that's not my name, name's Goose. And my oldest sister remembers it. She said that I was a tyrant, and I was terrible, and so I trained them to just call me Goose. So, yeah, so the story she told was very different, and was slightly disturbing that maybe I've had it wrong my whole life. But that's my story so far, and I'm going to stick with it until she convinces all of us otherwise. So, how I came to work at Swan Medical, which is 1 mile up the road, just past Sycamore Valley, in the Victorian houses. Swan Medical has a location in Scottish, and then they just opened the Danville office about a year ago. And how I came to Swan Medical was I started out, hey, are you
Oh, we're heckling you. No.
You did push-ups.
I got it.
No, I'm not.
I clearly don't get out at night. I didn't know this was crowded.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I started out my PA career working in medical weight loss, and I would see patients every 20 minutes or so for weekly check-ins, and we utilized specific diets, lifestyle modifications, and prescription medications, and I did that for 7 years. And somewhere along the way, I realized that the women and men who are 40 and older, they were really fighting hard, like way harder than people younger, to lose weight and keep it off. And I don't think it's a coincidence that that's when hormones start to climb. So that practice started implementing hormone replacement therapy, and the difference in people's success was remarkable in terms of their weight loss and their success in keeping it off, which is maintenance is the holy grail, right? It's the main mystery of how we do that, but they had a fighting chance when they had hormones in place. So that was a big key. And then I went to work for urology, and I worked there for 7 years. And I saw in older patients what happens when we don't take care of their hormones. In women, I saw urinary incontinence, recurrent UTIs, painful intercourse, vaginal dryness, itching. And in men, I saw erectile dysfunction and significant symptoms of lower testosterone. And some of these men, the normal range is 300 to 1,000, and we would run their labs, and in that practice, I had to only follow the lab. So if their value was 301, you're in the normal range. Sorry you cry every day, you can't get out of bed, and your zest for life is gone. Your number says 301, so we couldn't treat it. And it was frustrating, really frustrating to me, because I knew how significant testosterone could be for men who were, declined or deficient. So men who have prostate cancer, they would have testosterone suppression. You would watch the light go out of their eye as the testosterone went down to close to 0. And then after the prostate cancer was treated, we were able to put them on testosterone at that point. And then it was like watching a plant starve for water, like perk back up. So it was just interesting to see the contrast. So Dr. Castillo advertised, and he said, I'm looking for someone who does weight loss, maybe has a little urology experience with hormones. I'm like, me. I did play it cooler than that. A little bit. But I meant it. It was like the dream combination. So we do hormone replacement therapy for men and women, and we also do weight loss, and we also do peptide injections and therapies that we can talk about, that I'll talk to you about. We also do intimate wellness, which Dr. Castillo spoke about a couple weeks ago. And then we also do aesthetic wellness. So the philosophy is Okay, so women's hormones start to decline in their 30s, and it's a lovely place called perimenopause. It's no man's land. Hormones are declining, but you're still having a period, but you don't feel very good. You can't sleep, hot flashes, night sweats, loss of libido, decreased orgasms, decreased sensitivity, fatigue, lack of motivation for all the things in life that you actually like, but you just don't have the to go do, brain fog, difficulty concentrating. I mean, I'm expecting nods, ladies. So perimenopause, the average age for perimenopause is 35 to 45. Some women gradually decline, some women fall off a cliff. You can't tell ahead of time like who you're going to be, but you'll feel it, when it's happening. And by the time women have reached 40 years of age, they have lost 50% of their production of testosterone. And testosterone is the driver of cognition, energy, motivation, libido, and maintaining muscle mass, bone density. It's critical. Women are like, well, I'm in my 40s, I work full time, I sit in traffic, I've got kids, I'm running carpool, of course I'm tired. And I push back now and I say, yeah, but you don't have to be. Like, we can do better than that. Because we're so good at rationalizing why we don't feel good, that I think that the declining hormone conversation gets lost a little bit. So the other hormones that also are declining are estrogen, estradiol, and progesterone. And both of these are critical for sleep. Progesterone is magical for sleep for most women whenever we replace it. Women who used to wake up during the night or toss and turn, couldn't fall asleep, you give them progesterone and it's like feeding a baby a bottle of warm milk. You just go to sleep. Like they say, oh my gosh, I didn't remember what it felt like to close my eyes and go to sleep. Occasionally you have someone who doesn't have that response, but almost always they have improved sleep, if not great sleep at that point. Estrogen, you have estrogen receptors throughout your entire body. Estrogen affects every organ system. And the loss of estrogen can, like I said, start happening in your 30s, and then when you hit menopause, that's when your ovarian lifespan is over, and then the labs just say, so low we can't detect it. It basically says, wah, wah, and that's what everybody's hormones look like if you're in menopause. There's nothing there. And so if you don't have testosterone, and you don't have estrogen, and you don't have progesterone, all you're left with is willpower and likely a prescription for an antidepressant, which we hear all the time. And that's what I talk to my primary care, I talk to my gynecologist. They said, well, we can offer you Prozac or Lexapro, but that's just treating the symptom of the decline in hormones as opposed to treating the hormone deficiency. And there's a quote from an endocrinologist that I copied verbatim. I want to read to you because it captures this. Estrogen and progesterone are the only hormones we have accepted and justified to not replace when there's a deficiency. Any other hormone we wouldn't think twice about replacing. We replace thyroid, insulin, testosterone, growth hormone. We know that hormones have an immediate and a long-term effect, and as a medical society, we have reduced estrogen and progesterone as a mere reproductive hormone, which is how we have justified not replacing it in menopause. Pretty perfect quote. That just captures it. So here's some numbers. Percentage of women who will go through menopause, 100%. Women taking an antidepressant, 24%. Percentage of women who are offered any treatment for menopausal symptoms, 15%. Percentage of women taking hormone therapy, 7%. Percent of decline in testosterone production by age 40, 50%, which I mentioned. These numbers are sad and they ought to make you mad. That's what happened to me at my first hormone conference. Like, I wanted to stand up and say, what? How could we do this so wrong and bad? And so it's woefully undertreated, and the tide is turning. And I did not make this list, but I love it. It's the 7 dwarfs of menopause. Itchy, bitchy, sleepy, sweaty, bloated, forgetful, psycho, and their cousins, frigid and leaky. And it's like, yeah. I particularly like the cousins. So, yeah, if you feel not yourself, whatever the capacity is, not every woman has hot flashes and night sweats. I mean, that's the sort of the stereotypical symptom that you hear about. But some women have heart palpitations. They have a frozen shoulder. They have anxiety that they've never had before. They like their husband, but they'd rather do anything than have sex. They pretend to be asleep when he gets in bed, right? Like, that's just not like you, right? Like, if you just don't feel like yourself, don't underestimate that it could be hormones. Now, hormones can do a lot, but they can't fix everything. I can't fix the hurricane, and I can't fix the car that broke down, and I can't fix, what your great aunt said at the dinner table. I mean, but I can give you hormones that then make you able to cope better with these things, that go sideways. So I know that Dr. Castillo is the only representative in the room right now of men, but men do not get off scot-free. Their testosterone also declines, and they really are sad species when their hormones are gone. They start to gain weight in the middle. They lose muscle mass. They lose strength. They have erectile dysfunction. Their motivation declines. Energy declines. They have sleep difficulty. It looks very, very similar to what women go through. And so I was at a tea party some years ago, and women were sort of complaining that men had it so easy, which in some areas they do. But I, working in neurology, said, no, the prostate. It's the great leveler. Like, that really, they suffer with the prostate. So, but they also suffer with these testosterone declines. And, our typical patient age, I would say, is, 35 to 75. And I've had a patient who was 98. He was on testosterone. He had a girlfriend. She was only 81. And they had sex 3 times a week. And on the days that they didn't have sex, they went bowling. I love it, right? Yeah, it's great. So it's one of the questions that people ask is it too late? Am I too old to get hormones? No, absolutely not. It's each person has a tailored assessment, symptoms, medical history, labs. So the whole picture goes into making a plan, not just the labs like I was stuck with in that urology practice. So here are the benefits of testosterone: improved well-being, increased libido, improved cholesterol lipid panels, protection against cardiovascular disease, improved cognition, increased energy, strength, endurance. Ladies, I think you need it in this class. Decreased recovery after workouts. You can work out hard, and then the next morning you're ready to go again. Improved body composition, improved bone density. And I just want to pause on bone density for just a second, because 18% of women over the age of 50 have osteoporosis in their femur and spine. 50's not old. Like, 50's not elderly, and osteoporosis in 20% of women over 50, that's ridiculous. Estrogen and testosterone help protect against bone loss. 1 in 2 women and 1 in 4 men break a bone due to osteoporosis. So 1 in 2 women. Each year, 300,000 hip fractures occur in this country. 25% of those hip fractures die within that year. Women die of broken hips that lead to immobility, that lead to complications. Women die of cardiovascular disease, and estrogen and testosterone are protective against this. So we can do better than nothing. We really can. great option. You don't have homework, you don't have to remember anything. You might have to take progesterone, that cannot be in a pellet, but that's a great option. And women typically come every 3 to 4 months for pellets, men come 5 to 6 months. But yeah, some people just do better on one form or another, and we keep going till we get you dialed into what feels good. So if one form didn't work, you're not done. We're gonna fix it. So keep trying. So here are some quotes from patients before starting hormones. I have no interest in sex. I love my husband. I'd rather watch TV. This is one of my favorites. I'm sure that my vagina has cobwebs. Another one was, I'm sure that she said, my vagina is like a powdered donut. Okay. This is not my body. The things I used to do to lose weight just aren't working anymore. I never had a belly before. And then they touch right here, and then they make this face, and it's like a universal. Everyone who sits in that chair has that same story. I'm exhausted no matter how much sleep I get. I'm so irritable. Everything sets me off. I can't concentrate. I walk into rooms, I can't remember why I walked in there. I can't remember my neighbor's name. I've lived next door to them for 25 years. I feel like I'm cooking from the inside out. I'm so hot all the time. I feel anxious, and my doctor wants to put me on an antidepressant. Those are really, really common quotes. Okay. I don't know how to do a drum roll, but if I did, I would say. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, after hormones, you saved my marriage. Thank you, I have my life back. I feel like myself again. I love working out again. I'm amazed at how quickly I recover from a hard workout. I don't need to take naps. I sleep like a baby. I no longer have hot flashes. They are completely gone. I can put my jeans in the dryer. And my focus is better than it's ever been. Today, I had a woman who started on pellets 6 weeks ago. She came in today for her first follow-up, and she has really bad knee pain. And she said within 2 days, she didn't have to hold on to the rail walking down the stairs. She said it's uncanny. She said, I couldn't believe. I thought it was like, my imagination. She said, but my knees don't hurt anymore. It's like just so gratifying and exciting to hear someone have that response. So testosterone can also help with pain. Not everybody has that benefit. I don't want to go into all this, but a lot of people do. So those are the quotes after hormones. One lady said after she got put on testosterone, she leaned in close and she whispered, she said, I know how men think now. I said, tell me. And she said, I might be driving by the high school, you know what I mean? I said, we better dial it back. Go back that day. I know, it's hilarious. The same woman who had improved knee pain, she also said to me today, she's like, I might be noticing that somebody's cute. I might have checked them out a little bit. So it's like that. It's like just your normal feeling that you used to have. It just comes back. Some people have started to have their first sort of sign of things like recovering as they start to have sex dreams. And if I ask them, they're like, how'd you know? So it can be subtle. Or it could just be that, like you just would rather do something than watch TV. It could be that. So, okay. So switching gears, we also do weight loss. And we have different tools to help with that. We have semaglutide and tirzepatide, which are generic GLP-1s, the Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro. And what's amazing about these is, yes, they do help with weight loss in a very dramatic way, but also they have such a strong anti-inflammatory benefit that one of my patients, his cardiologist put him on it, not for weight loss, but for the cardiovascular protection because of the anti-inflammatory. Another lady, she'd been on tirzepatide for 2 weeks, and she called specifically and said, I just want you to know that I've had your twitching hour in the evening. So there's short acting and they're long acting, and they work in different ways. So there's different approaches depending on what each person's challenge is. We have monthly check-ins for accountability and problem solving, and then we do the body comp analysis just like the InBody that you have in your front. Yeah. Yesterday I had a patient who he said his scale said exactly 201.9 last visit and this visit. And he's like, I don't get it. My clothes are fitting better. I feel better. He's like, I feel like I can see it in the mirror. And then we looked at the analysis, and he dropped 5% body fat in 4 weeks, and he had gained 2 pounds of muscle. Well, obviously that's way more exciting than having the scale stay the same. So I love that you have the InBody. Okay, so last but not least, we also offer peptide therapies. So these are injectable peptides that are truly about enhancing well-being. I don't know, they must get paid by the number of letters and numbers they name these things by, because they all have these weird names. So BPC 157, anybody heard of this one? Okay. So it's body protective compound, and it's found in the gastric secretions, and it promotes healing and regeneration of tissues. And so people, with aches and pains and recovery, this is a good option for them. It comes in an oral form and an injectable, but pretty much across the board, the injectable of any of these seem to be better bioavailability and efficacy, but we have 2 options for them. Sermorelin and CJC 1295. Both of these are injections that stimulate your own production of growth hormone. And growth hormone is the elixir of life, and everybody wants more of it. This is just a way of getting your body to produce its own growth hormone. It's not, injecting growth hormone. So, and people have pretty good response to this one. They feel like their subcutaneous fat decreases, their skin tightens, they have more energy, they have better strength gains when they work out. And these 2 particular ones that stimulate growth hormone, you do them in like a cycle. You do 5 days on, 2 days off, 5 days on, 2 days off. You do it at bedtime before you go to sleep, and you're supposed to do it on an empty stomach. See, I told y'all that I like to eat. I can't do Sermorelin because I can't quit eating early enough in the night to have an empty stomach. So my attempt at this experiment didn't go well for myself because I wasn't disciplined enough to quit eating, but y'all were disciplined. And then there's NAD plus injections, and NAD plus is touted as being, it's NAD plus is part of every cell in your body, and it's supposed to help with just regenerative of healthy tissue and mostly cognition. And so that's also an option that we just recently got the injectable version. Before we had the nasal spray, but again, the injection seems to be a better effect. So that's the longevity piece of this one. Any questions?
So many questions.
Please.
Could you talk about that last thing you just talked about?
Yeah, the NAD plus.
There's a lot of echoing in here.
Oh, okay.
And so it's N81?
NAD. Like mad, but with the letter N.
NAD. Oh, you're talking about
Peptides.
Peptides, yeah.
Oh, choline. Is that a
No,
peptide?
that's MAC. That's something else.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
different, yeah.
We can email you information about it if you would like. If that'd be
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't realize there was.
Well, I was just curious about what it, I'm not that familiar with it.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, it's newer to me as well, and I haven't personally tried it, and I only have 2 patients currently on it. I mean, everybody in the world knows about it except for me, basically. But the 2 patients that I do have on it, they do feel like they're sharper, like they can just focus for longer, and that their memory is better. They're just sharper. But I don't have any anecdotal stories to tell.
back it up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, if anybody here have to learn the Krebs cycle in high school, in college?
Yes.
Yeah, how many times did you have to learn that over and over again before any of it stuck, right? So the Krebs cycle is part of the way we create energy in our body. And NAD is one of the coenzymes in the Krebs cycle. So the theory is adding more energy potential into the system helps with the Krebs cycle and our energy production in the body. It's been around for quite a while. It is considered a peptide, so a short chain amino acid segment of a protein. And but NAD is an energy coenzyme that feeds our own system. So if you think of like photosynthesis in a plant, their Krebs cycle, their equivalent Krebs cycle, they require energy from the sun. We require energy in the form of our nutrition. And NAD comes from that. So nicotinamide adenosine dinucleotide is what it is. And it's an energy coenzyme. No, I won't remember that later.
You sounded like you really knew what
I think I've had to learn the Krebs cycle at least 100 times, and don't ask me to ever draw it. I can't. I don't remember. I remember small pieces of it. But that's just one of the ways of how peptides and some of the supplements that we offer is to put energy into the system, restore reparative processes in our bodies by giving it back when it's deficient.
And that's injected?
And it can come in different ways, injectable, intranasal. It all depends on how the FDA likes to control things, and sometimes we have them in certain ways, and sometimes we lose them, and it's just a matter of chasing the whale.
I see a lot of ads on like social media for NAD. Is that just
No,
not
it's
good, or does that work? It's one of those things. It's advertised so much, it almost seems too good to be true. Like there's no way that it can actually do what it says it does.
Yeah.
See the
Like-
capsules though.
Yeah.
Advertise a lot, like
Yeah.
the capsules,
And
those
it's
you
like,
can't get anywhere. But I think the capsules are different than, an injectable or.
They are. Unfortunately, marketing strategies by a lot of companies will create like GLP-1 like things. There'll be a supplement that supposedly stimulates the same receptors as taking a GLP-1. If that were the case, that would have been available for a long time ago. And it doesn't seem to work. Studies have shown it's not really beneficial. So you have to be careful of the snake oils on Amazon and all the marketing. However, there's a lot of good data for a lot of the things we do. In fact, all the things we do are evidence-based. It's just a matter of availability and education and trying to identify what the patient, where their needs are. Not just throwing the kitchen sink at everybody. It's really about finding the needs, meeting the patients where they are. Because some patients are blessed. They truly come in, testosterone levels, a male in the 700 range and they're 70-something. And they look it. They're there because their wife is a client. And they say, I think maybe you should go look and find out. Maybe you're deficient. No, I want to be him. and same thing for women. I think the challenge, and not to steal your moment, but I think the challenge is in women's health, ovarian lifespan is finite. Men can be blessed and still produce testosterone in children until their 90s, which baffles me why we would do that. But not everybody does. Men go through andropause, women 100% go through menopause, and the sex hormone support for your body's needs and longevity are important.
Any other questions? How long do you usually take hormone therapy? What's is it like a year? Is it forever?
As long as you want to feel the benefits, you stay on them, unless there's some medical reason to stop. But you can stop at any time. It's not a one-way street. Like if you wanted to come off hormones,
is that, like, so I'm just curious, what kind of testing you guys do?
I mean, that's an interesting perspective for Kaiser to say, because glucose levels change all the time, and we check that. That's a weird rationale. So when you're.
I think it's that, yeah,
Yeah.
I've literally had both my gynecologist, my PCP, and my husband's PCP say the same thing. Like, we don't do hormone testing because for testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, because they fluctuate too much.
So when you're in perimenopause, you know, like if you're still having period, yes, your estrogen and progesterone are fluctuating. But your testosterone is pretty stable. You'll see some variation depending on the time of day, but you take that with a grain of salt, you can figure that out. And just so you know, insurance wants men to check their testosterone before 10 a.m. because it's naturally higher first thing in the morning, and they don't want to cover it. So they
Interesting.
sneaky, right? But I can tell your husband how to game it if he needs to at Kaiser.
Okay.
Yeah, so, Dr. Castillo, it's a strange notion to think that just because they fluctuate, but you can see, so if you're still having a period, we pretty much know you don't need estrogen yet. And the progesterone, if you're still having a period, progesterone would be used, depending on the patient, for symptom relief, more than deficiency. But once you get into menopause, your labs really are consistently saying nothing here. There's nothing here. Like, it's sad here. Like you're very consistently, there's nothing here. And so have you heard?
Yeah, I repeated those same words 20 years ago, because that's what we're taught. We're taught to, if you don't have a solution for it, don't test for it. So if you don't know what to do with a lab report, don't order it. Same thing with imaging, whatever. And it's all about cost savings and best practices, not about actually finding solutions, because if you don't have a tool for it, don't look for it. And that's an unfortunate truth of medicine.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if you wanted to test a woman's hormones, like if you're in your reproductive years, you would certainly check them at certain times because it's predictable. It's very predictable. The cycle's 28 days. You know exactly when you're going to find certain things, and you know when you're not. And in menopause, you know where it's going. So you can certainly test at any point. What you're going to do with that information is the trick, and we're not taught. And when you're in systems that are protocolized, where care is you fit either A, B, or C block, and if you're not a square peg for the round hole, then you don't fit. So I can't test for that. That's the unfortunate truth. But so the reality is, yes, you can. It's a matter of knowing what to do with it.
Yeah, a lot of our patients that have Kaiser won't even run, the labs that we need.
Yeah.
So we do have a negotiated rate with Quest Labs that has really great pricing to do those labs. So that's what we'll send our patients that have Kaiser to get the labs that we need.
Yeah, they refuse to do anything.
Yeah, they won't do. Yeah, I have Kaiser patient call and they'll say, well, I know my primary will. And I'm like, okay, I'll send you the lab order. Let me know if he does, if your primary does, and if not, call me back. And they call back and they're like, okay, I need to go
girlfriend, you know, once a month and she drinks 3 margaritas that night, you're like, she looked good. I promise you, she's not drinking margaritas except for that one night. Like, I mean, just as an example, like, it seems unfair, because it is unfair, but also sometimes you don't know what all someone's doing, all the hard work they're also doing, you know, behind the scenes. But, yeah, my observation is protein takes longer to digest. It has satiety signals that are pretty long lasting, and when you're losing weight, you will lose some muscle mass no matter how careful you are, but having added protein really limits the amount of muscle you might lose. So I know. But I don't know about the pre and post workout. I can tell you a great person to follow, Lane Norton. He's a PhD. He's a power lifter, and he has a PhD in nutrition science, and he's funny and brilliant. And so he has t-shirts for sale that I think this might be the only tattoo I've ever considered doing. It says data greater than feelings. And I'm like, yes, I love that, yes. So it's really great. He has a couple of podcasts where he teaches regular consumers how to understand journal articles, like the actual journal article and what the research shows and how to interpret it. He's a teacher. He very much is a teacher, and he's great.
What's his name?
Lane Norton, Layne Norton, and he's worth following.
I have 2 questions. The first one, my mom is a breast cancer survivor, and they always told her, no, you can't have hormones. Now I've read, listened, and I've learned, I think, hard to know what to believe, that that's not true. What's your take on that?
I'm impressed that you have done your homework. And have you read the book Estrogen Matters?
No, I've read it.
Yeah, it's really good. That book is written by a doctor named Avram Louis, and he is a breast oncologist. And then he partnered with a statistician named Carol Tavros, and they went back and looked at the Women's Health Initiative data, and what got reported was flawed. The research was flawed and the reporting was flawed. And they certainly were quick to come out and say, in the headline, estrogen causes breast cancer, right? But then when they realized they got it wrong, have you heard that? Have you heard that they got it wrong? No, they were whispering this quietly, maybe in the back of the journal article, they say, oh, we might have gotten it wrong, maybe. But a whole generation of women, our mother's generation, got yanked off hormones. So in terms of breast cancer, it depends on, the patient and what kind of breast cancers are. But women can go on testosterone, even having had breast cancer. And some testosterone will naturally convert to estradiol. You can block that natural conversion, and it's pretty safe. But again, it's really individual, but yes. Also, even women who have breast cancer, like right now, if you're walking around with breast cancer, you still will need vaginal estrogen to support the pelvic floor health. And it's not enough to become systemic, but it is critical for preventing urinary tract infections, atrophy, which then leads to loss of support for the urethra, which then leads to incontinence. And in urology, I saw a lot of recurrent UTI ladies, and if you put them on vaginal estrogen just twice a week, their UTIs clear up within 3 months typically. I didn't learn that in school.
Something really interesting today, a bulletin was released by the North American, now called the Menopause Society, a very conservative group that basically supports menopause and research in that field. But because they're so conservative, they've been following the same dogma for all these 22 years, because data showed this insignificant increase in estrogen in breast cancer in one of the groups of that study. They never changed their story. they finally acknowledge now, just in the last few years, that the study is flawed, estrogen matters, that women should be held on estrogen, but yet they've never taken the extra step about what about the breast cancer survivor, what about them? Because they shouldn't be penalized for surviving by not giving them back their estrogen. So they put out a bulletin today, which I'm really happy about, we're gonna share in our journal club, is that it's an educated conversation with the patient about the benefits and risks, because lifestyle and quality of life impact without estrogen is significant, that the small risk of recurrence shouldn't outweigh that. So even breast cancer survivors can be considered to be put back on estrogen, even if they have estrogen receptor positive breast cancer history. But you have to take into account their quality of life, their lifestyle, and their lifespan, as well as the specific type of cancer they have. So taking those into consideration, at least now they publicly acknowledge that women, even breast cancer survivors, should have the opportunity to discuss at least options for estrogen or hormone replacement therapy. That was today, so that was really
Yeah.
exciting.
But estrogen matters.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic book. And if you don't feel like reading it, there's a 2.5-hour podcast where they're interviewed. It's like the clips. I'm so happy all alone know what it's like.
Now it's called ChatGPT.
Yes.
My other question, sorry, I'm not a student. CD?
Oh, that's perfect.
Oh, okay, here we go. So Kaiser patient too, all my life. And I do love my OB, she's amazing. But same thing, like you can't pass Lola. But I've had, so I'm 50 and I definitely, stuff is going on. But recently I've always been a headache person, but I can pinpoint it. It's when my cycle starts, when it ends, and they're awful. And so she did give me some pills. I'm thinking I can't remember, progesterone, I think, just to take during my cycle. Now, I'm a scaredy cat, I don't like to take stuff. I haven't taken it yet. Does that sound like something?
Most likely progesterone. The challenge is, if you're, is it periods are just really heavy, really long, really erratic?
No, the headache.
Oh, the headache.
The headache is so bad. No, it's, the actual period is,
Okay, and when does the headache happen?
usually before, like I have one now, so I'm gonna get one, you know.
Premenstrual migraine.
Or if I don't get it in the beginning, then it comes at the end, the headache. So,
Well, if she's really abreast of new therapies, she might have just given you estrogen. Might be just a small dose of estrogen, because what triggers the headache is the estrogen decline just before your period.
yeah.
So it could have been just that. But if you go old school, what everybody's been doing is avoiding giving you estrogen because of fear of this notion that migraines, menstrual migraines, giving them birth control or estrogen can lead to strokes. But that's not true. It's only in the subset of patients who have stroke, migraines with aura that has a slight increased risk if you give them birth control, which is a much higher dose of estrogen. So but they just translate it into the same thing, like don't give anybody estrogen if they have migraines before their period. Really, the solution is give a low dose of estrogen and migraines go away.
Okay, it must be estrogen. She did talk about birth control too.
Yeah, it's confusing, but
Figure it out.
that's what it most likely is.
Yeah, nuance takes a lot more thought, right, than just no.
I feel like so many people suffer from migraines too, so many women especially. Yeah, it's so sad.
Yeah. We have a patient who has seizures, and Dr. Castillo theorized that it was estrogen withdrawal. He put her on estrogen, and the seizures that she's had for so many years have diminished by like 80%. Pretty cool.
It's like it's linked to like,
Yeah.
Yeah, like everything. Yes. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I had a question about testosterone pellets. My doctor gave me their testosterone cream, which I think is kind of yucky and sticky, and I end up never using it just because it's so gross. know I need it, but she keeps telling me that the testosterone pellet is hard to get the accurate dosage, because you could put it in and then for 3 months, like if you're too high, then you just have to live with it for 3 or 4 months.
I
Is
know,
that true?
energy and a libido is hell, isn't it?
So like, what would this
I
individual
mean, that's
too
true,
much
and it's
or
true
too
that when the
low?
pellet's in, you can't go get it
Yeah, you
out. But
can't
what's wonderful is, we have formularies that where you put in your age, your height, your weight, and all of your labs, and then we calculate our best guess as to what you will need. And, you know, we might not get it perfect, but close, so you don't have like 3 months of suffering.
But you're not gonna have like a rapid heartbeat or anything like that for the 3 or 4 months where you're like miserable of that
No, what's
experience.
wonderful about pellets is it's slowly metabolized, it's like a steady state release over the 3 months for women, and as opposed to you know, like a testosterone injection that you do once a week, you have a lot more of this up and down, and the pellet is a very steady state. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a slight curve, so it does start to taper off, but then we catch you at that point, and then, you know, just adjust the dose. But yeah, that just doesn't seem to be an issue that, I've been doing hormones for 10 years, and it just hasn't been an issue where someone's like, when can I have more is typically what happens. But
Does it dissolve after?
it does, it
Okay.
eventually just disappears, like it just dissolves. And I don't know why, but just, it seems like over the years, I really feel like with women, particularly women, pellets are the best way to go. Cream is my least favorite.
It's gross.
Not because it doesn't work, but it's just, you have to put it on. It only works if you put it on. And then the absorption varies from person to person. And then when you, is it compounded?
Yeah,
Yes, and then when you dial it,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like toothpaste, like sometimes a big blob comes out, and sometimes it's just less
yeah, you're supposed to let it dry.
control. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, so for you, maybe cream is not the best option since you hate it. Yeah. But,
It doesn't work if you don't use it, if you don't
Yes.
want to use it, or if you don't remember to use it. So, yeah, that's why I'm personally a big fan of the pellets, because, you know, at the end of the night after getting the kids to bed and all that, and then doing my nighttime routine, then I don't want to have to remember to do another cream or another thing, whereas, you know, just do my pellets and 3 months later, it's on my calendar, it's already scheduled, do it again, and yeah.
What exactly is the, I'm naive here, the pellet, like, is it in your skin or?
it's just under your skin, like in the fat layer, just under your skin. And it can go here, sort of the top of the hip, or it can go in your flank.
Can you feel it? Like, you can push on it?
No, it's too small. Like if I wanted to go get it, let's say that you're like, no, I changed my mind. I'm like, I couldn't go find it if it's too small. Like, yeah, you can't feel it.
Are there any negative side effects?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, with everything, but.
A lot of us would be like,
I know,
that's fine. So with testosterone, you can have hair thinning, you can have acne, and you can grow whiskers.
And that just makes it too much, right?
So you have a libido, but you can't get a date. We have solutions for all of that if you have, some women don't have it, like, they just, you know, they're the same people that didn't have to study, you know? They're just lucky. But we do have solutions if you have negative side effects. But yeah, when you first start testosterone, there's a little bit of fluid retention for some women, and it can mess with your head if you're a scale person, like you've done scale, but it's just fluid and it's transient, it goes away, and it's not like every time you get pelleted that you have that. It's just when you're first initiating that sometimes there's some fluid retention. But yeah.
Are all these for when you're in menopause, or are they when you're perimenopause?
Period and,
You have to like know which one you're in to know.
yeah, and the labs will tell us. So let's say that you have an IUD, or let's say you had a hysterectomy, so we don't know if you're having a period anymore or not. The labs will tell us that, because the follicle stimulating hormone tells us where you are in terms of menopause, and then your estrogen level, of course, is going to tell us. Yeah.
That's my situation right now, because I don't get a period, so.
Yeah. Do you have some, are you having some
That's how I found out. Because I don't get a period either, and I
Yeah.
didn't know if I was in menopause or not.
Yeah, I don't.
And I just
don't
got a
think
pellet
I
on
do.
Friday. So you can ask me all the questions.
So you got your labs
Uh-huh.
and that told you? 'Cause
Yeah.
I wanna know.
Yeah, yeah.
Labs and symptoms will tell you. You know, I have IUDs, I don't get my
Yeah,
period,
that's right.
but I'm 48, I am in perimenopause, yeah, and I just.
I mean, I have a lot of symptoms.
Yeah.
but I don't know, so.
Yeah, so we probably are.
Probably. Okay.
Yeah, so one of the things I want to bring up is because a lot of the generation of patients that weren't treated, well, the generation of physicians that weren't taught. And unfortunately, they just don't know what to do with this information. And nobody has the time to learn new things because we're so busy. So, so when physicians are finally coming online, like right now, all the doctors that at first for the last 10 years that were criticizing me for treating their patients with hormones that they wouldn't treat, but they would come to see me for hormones. Now they're offering hormone therapy, but they don't know how to, so they go the minimalist approach, lowest amount. Now, not for the shortest duration of time anymore, but they'll just start them at the lowest dose of anything and not doing anything. And they also won't check labs because they don't know what to do with that information. They don't know how to titrate up, they don't know how to increase or decrease. They're fear-driven treatments. They're fear side effects. They fear the what ifs, the things that they don't know. So they just go low. And they may even say, well, you know, in the labs, you're not having a period and clearly you're menopausal because you're 60 or something. So I'll just give you a little drop in the ocean, and if your symptoms go away, I'm a hero. Reality is, how much are we supporting you? Hot flash is the easiest thing to knock out. Are we supporting your heart? Are we supporting your bones? Are you supporting the rest of your body? And how much is too much? Right? So they don't know that. So they just go low and they won't check the labs, and that's where a lot of these pop-ups all of a sudden are seeing online. All these online telemedicine services offering hormone therapy, wanting to help people, but doing it in a way just really generating a business like the minimalist approach. Really, it should be tailored for every patient, and labs do matter. Like, you don't need to spend $1,000 on labs. You really don't. You just need to get some certain labs, combine that with the right symptoms and the right person to know how to deal with it. So, if you do your research and look online, you'll notice there's a lot of people just looking to sell you stuff. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, but if they're looking for just shortcuts, there's a reason for that. They just don't know what to do with it.
How do you determine the optimal? I mean, do you like go back to like an average 30-year-old to figure out what optimal?
I think everyone wants to go back to 30. Nobody ever wants to go back to 20.
No, I don't really have
No
any.
offense.
60.
Oh, Nora.
But how do you?
20, you're invincible. 30, you know what to do with that invincibility, right? And then the goal is really just, there's benchmarks that we look for, certain levels that you should hit. Like for estrogen, you don't need to be in the 300 range like you were in your 20s or 30s, because that's also why moods are so irregular. But below 50, your bones aren't getting enough support, neither is your heart. So knowing that is part of the problem that doctors don't know. And because we're taught to look at labs, the reference range as a guide, that's only a screening average of the population, has nothing to do with health.
At your age.
At your
Population at your age.
That's
Yes.
exactly right. So that serves you no purpose if you don't know what to look for. So we look for benchmarks, thresholds that we want to meet, and symptom relief, obviously, because that's just an easy one. But symptom relief is just part of it. We just want to get you into a range that's safe for you, gives you longevity and the support that you need, not make you superhuman or 15 or 20.
I just need that second.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, are you taking your patient? Yeah. And then.
Yeah, let's go right on.
Yeah.
We have, Janice can follow up with you if you're interested in getting some lots done. Anybody, really.
And anybody who competed in the U versus U challenge, you guys all got a gift certificate to Swan Medical that you can use towards, consultation.
Yep.
Is insurance usually, I know insurance is different across the board, but do you find that a lot of insurance companies do cover some of it? No, okay.
We try to work with people's insurance as far as lab works. Lab work, if you have a commercial insurance, we'll put the labs in. through that way. But they don't cover a lot of anything above minimal,
Yeah.
the lowest dose. And they won't cover alternatives, they won't cover anything compounded or pellets.
Yeah.
But anything that can be prescribed, we do. It'll go through insurance. Even Kaiser patients, they won't cover the labs, but they'll cover some medications we put them on. But yeah, unfortunately, insurance isn't looking for things to cover, they just cover what they have to.
Right.
And that's it. That's the unfortunate truth. But we try to make it very accessible as far as what the care you give, that you get is important. The nuance matters, as I think we've talked about. But we also understand that, use what you can as far as insurance goes, but they're gonna only cover what they feel is necessary.
And if it's any consolation, they